Means you have not understood the channels God has made available for you to access reality. And tonight, I want to break it down into 3. Number 1 is to see him. You know, God is awesome. God knows that outside of him, anything you have will become your God. So in his wisdom, he ropes everything you need into himself, so that the moment you access him, things become byproducts. That's why Jesus was speaking in John 17 verse 3. He said, this is life eternal, that you know God. If you know him, the quality of your life increases. The quality of your life is a reflection of the knowledge of God that you have. The more you know God, the more glory comes out of you, because that's how he designed it. So anybody who wants to access anything must first of all see him, because it's as you behold him that you are changed. If you don't see him, you can't access what you are looking for. And if you route that thing through any other means, that thing will become your God. In the Old Testament, when you study the Bible, you will notice that everybody that commanded enviable order of life had an encounter with God, and he was able to qualify that encounter. Does it not shock you that all the names of God we know, it was not in heaven they sent it from? It's men that named God. Only few names were given to men in the Old Testament, like God telling Moses, go tell them, I am that I am have sent you. Most of the names of God, when they encountered him and they see the dimension that follow, they now name those dimensions after those encounters. Jehovah Jireh is not God the provider. Jehovah Jireh means upon the mountain he shall be seen. That's why Jesus said concerning Abraham, Abraham your father saw my day, and he rejoiced in it. So Abraham saw Jesus. He saw a dimension of the Christ upon the mountain. That's what Abraham called Jireh. And when Jesus came many years later, telling the Pharisees that Abraham saw him, they didn't understand what happened. They say, you are not yet 50. How can you claim that Abraham saw you? And he looked at them and laughed. He said, before Abraham was, I am. When Abraham ascended that mountain, he saw a dimension. That dimension was what resulted in the superfluous life that Abraham lived. The dimension of God he saw provoked abundance. So the abundance in itself is not the blessing. The dimension he saw was the blessing. Because every time God wants to give you something, he reveals to you a dimension. And so anybody who wants anything, his pursuit will be to see God. Tonight we have come for a miracle service. I'm teaching like this because it's beyond healing you from an infirmity. Miracle is not healing. Healing is included in miracle. Miracle is divine intervention, altering the systems of men to provide divine order. Healing can be involved, but it's beyond it. Because some of you listening to me now, the miracle you need is for an addiction to die. Some of you listening to me now, the miracle you need is for a door to open. It has nothing to do with sickness, but for that thing to happen, you must encounter a dimension. You must see him before you can command that dimension. You must encounter him to command that dimension. This is why the blessing is for everybody, but only few are experiencing it, because only few can see him. But you know, God is gracious. God is so gracious, and he saw and knew that everybody may not be able to ascend to the mountains that the patriarchs ascended. Because you know, before you see Jireh, you must have sacrifice. The ladder you climb to meet Jireh is sacrifice. If you don't have an Isaac to offer, you cannot see Jireh. See, there are many Christians who are, oh, God will give them abundance. They are claiming, quoting abundance. They don't see it. There is a ladder you climb to meet Jireh. That ladder is Isaac. If you can't sacrifice Isaac, you can't see Jireh. No matter how you quote it, quote and claim won't work. Because every dimension of God you see, there is a channel for entering that dimension. But God saw that if I'm waiting for all of them to climb, very few will climb. So what God did was that he descended. He descended. And he didn't just descend in the packets that the patriarchs had. When God descended, he first of all aggregated the whole packages together. So that you don't need to go up, see Jireh, go up, see Saboat, go up. He aggregated the whole packages together and he sent it to earth. And so when the angel showed up, he said, you shall call his name Jesus, because he shall save his people from their sins. So when you see Christ, when you see Jesus, all of the dimensions that you are looking for is aggregated there. Did you not read your Bible? Take healing, for instance. In Numbers 21 verse 4 to 5, when Israel was being beaten in the wilderness, God didn't bring herbal cure for them. Not because herbs are not powerful. God told Moses, create a brazen serpent, hang it on the pole. Anybody that is beaten and looks upon the pole shall be healed. So the way you receive cure from serpentine strike is to look at the serpent on the pole. And when Jesus showed up in John chapter 3 verse 14, Jesus said, the same way Moses put the serpent in the wilderness and anybody who saw it was saved, he says, so also the Son of Man shall be lifted up, and anybody that sees him shall be saved. So all of the dimensions of the Old Testament that they saw and walked in, the results they walked in, was aggregated together in Christ. So the duty of a believer who wants to be blessed of God is to contend to see Jesus. Is to contend to see Jesus. But you now wonder, but Jesus has gone back to heaven. How do I see him? In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him. Without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life. The life was the light of man. The light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. So he was the Word before he became a bodied entity. Because it's this Word in verse 14 that became flesh. So you may not have been around in the days of his flesh, but when you see him in the Word, you are as good as seeing him the way those who saw him in the flesh saw him. So our duty as believers is to see Jesus. And the only place you can see Jesus today is in the Word of God. That's why a believer who is seeking anything from God and does not route the Word is a joker. You see why we teach? You see why we spend time with the Word? The goal is not to make you a theologian. If you are a theologian, that's good. You can defend the church on apologetics front. Bishop is a theologian. Who knows whether he's even censoring what I'm teaching now? But our focus is not to raise theologians. Our focus is to raise witnesses. Paul said, when I came unto you, I did not come with excellency of speech, declaring unto you the counsel of God. I choose to know nothing among you save Christ and him crucified. My teaching and my preaching were not with enticing words of man's wisdom. They were the demonstration of the Spirit and power. So when Paul was teaching, he was literally painting Jesus like an artist. He told the Galatian church in Galatians 3 from verse 1, oh foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? And you are wondering, what do you mean? He said, before you, whom Christ was evidently manifested as crucified. If you are in Galatia, you'll be wondering, I wasn't there when Jesus was crucified. You know what Paul was saying? The message I preached was a portrait of the crucified Christ. If you hear my message, it will be real to you as though you were standing in front of Jesus on the cross. I came to paint Christ to you. But the goal of painting Christ to you is not to make you a theologian, it's to make you a witness. That's why he went down to say, him that worketh miracles among you. He said, doeth it by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith. What it means is that when you see Jesus, there are results that your life commands. So a man cannot claim he has seen Jesus who does not have results. The proof that you have seen Jesus are the liberties that you enjoy. Because when you know the truth does not just educate you. When you know the truth makes you free. So you have not seen Jesus if you don't command divine order and divine results. That's why the duty of the believer, the press of the believer, is to see him. Any dimension you see becomes your true wealth. Because true riches is not money. True riches is not car. True riches are the dimensions of God that you have caught. But you can't catch any divine dimension if you have not seen Christ. Every believer must see Jesus. If you can't see Jesus, you are not yet a believer. And if you can't unveil Jesus, you are not a preacher. This was Paul talking. I came to reveal Christ. Because when you see him, that your mountain will disappear. When you see him, that your challenge will disappear. The challenge appears powerful because you have not yet seen him. You see him and see what happens to your challenge. And then somebody say, okay, I will carry the whole Bible and cram it and see Jesus. That's Eastern religion. The idea is not to cram all the letters. No. The truth is that Jesus is in the letters. That's why he said precept shall be upon precept. Lines shall be upon lines. Here a little, there a little. It's like a puzzle. Your duty is to extract and extrapolate and form the figure of Christ. And if you want to see the figure of Christ from the word, the easiest way to see the figure of Christ is to find out what the cross represents. Because the summation of the essence of Christ is tied to his death, burial, and resurrection. I've taught you here many times. 1 Corinthians 15 from verse 1 to verse 4. Paul was teaching. And here is what Paul said. Moreover, brethren, I declare unto you the gospel which I preach, which also you have received, wherein you stand. Victorious men stand there. Verse 2, by which also you are saved, if you keep in memory what I have preached unto you, unless you have believed in vain. What did he preach? For I deliver unto you first that which also I received, how that Christ died according to the scriptures. Verse 4, and he was buried, and he rose from the dead. This was the capsule that contained the revelation of Jesus. The death, the burial, and the resurrection. But you see, the focus of Paul is not for you to just believe that Jesus died. The focus of Paul is not for you to just believe that he was buried. The focus of Paul is not for you to believe that he rose from the dead. That's a history class. The focus of Paul is for you to understand the implication of the death, the burial, and the resurrection. When you see that implication, you have seen Christ. Because that implication is the revelation of Christ. And when you look at this story, the first thing you are going to extract from here is the love of the Father. Because Jesus is the representation of the love of the Father. That's what this story captures. So you read Romans 8:32. Paul said that if he did not withhold his only begotten son, but gave him freely for us, how shall he not with him give us all things? John was speaking in John 3:16. He said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish. So death, burial, and resurrection is not to equip you with a history lesson. It's to unveil to you the love of God. That God in his majesty was willing to surrender his glory and to step into the earth and to die like a criminal. And he didn't do that for himself. That he did that for you. The moment it becomes reasonable to you, the love of God will be awoken in your heart. That love of God becomes the tangible dimension of Jesus that you have. That love becomes the revelation of Jesus that you have. This is why 1 John 4:8 says, God is love. Because the summary of this message is love. I am God. If man falls, I can create another one. I am God. If man sins, he can be destroyed. I can continue with my agenda. But for me to stop my program, for me not to create another entity, but to go to save man. And saving man is not just me sitting on my throne and say be saved. Saving man means somebody will die in his place. And I check the whole universe. Nobody qualifies to die. If anybody will die, it has to be another man. And God looks at the angel. All of them were bowing down. Holy, holy, holy. The whole heaven were worshiping. Holy, holy, holy. And God abandons that worship. And God leaves his throne. And God steps down from his throne. And God enters the womb of a woman. And God is there, hungry like a man. When the woman eats, God eats. When the woman does not eat, God does not eat. When the woman is sick, God is sick. When the woman is tired, God is tired. And God remained there for 9 months. When God was about to be born, they threatened to kill God. They had to run with God to Egypt for God not to be killed. And God was in Egypt. And God suffered in Egypt and waited for the king to die. After the king died, they brought God back. And God was suffering like every man. And God was growing like every man. Do you know what it looks like when Jesus looked at heaven? And he still sees all the angels bowing. Meanwhile, when they were bowing, that's when the Pharisees were dragging him. Who do you say you are again? We will kill you today. And Jesus stands in between. I'm the one they are worshiping in heaven. Yet I'm the one they are dragging. They are disgracing. Do you know when Jesus was on the cross and he looked into heaven, angels were still bowing down. Angels were still worshiping. The same one that they are worshiping in heaven was hanging naked on earth, and they are mocking him. And he has the power to jump down and say, I don't tire. Enough is enough. But he remained there. Not because the cross held him, he held the cross. Do you know why it's difficult for you to trust God for breakthrough? Do you know why it's difficult for you to trust God for deliverance? It's because you have not seen Jesus. If you have seen him through the love of God, you will talk the same thing Paul said. If he did not withhold his only begotten son, if he gave him freely for us, how shall he not give us all things? So a man is going to trust God for an addiction to break. He thinks it's so big. A man is trusting God for breakthrough. He thinks it's so big. What else can God give that is greater than Jesus? The revelation of the love of Jesus is what substantiates the message of the death, burial, and resurrection. And the day you will see that, nothing will be too big anymore. Believe me, if you see that, your crisis will vanish. If you see that, your fear will disappear. If you see that, nothing will be too big for you to ask. And that's not all. That same history class reveals something to us. The wisdom of God. So when the apostle said Jesus is the love of the Father, they are talking from somewhere. He is the definition of love manifested. When the apostles say Jesus is the wisdom of God, they are saying something deep. You know why? When he came to earth, Satan thought if we kill him, it's over. So they were planning how to assassinate him. Assassinate Jesus. On one occasion, Jesus spoke. He said, this commandment I have received from my Father. I have the power to lay down my life and to take it up again. No man can take my life from me. Yet they were trying to kill him. They were trying to assassinate him. They were trying to murder him until they succeeded. And when they now killed him, that was when they discovered that he actually came to die. That it is in dying that he will conquer. So when he hung on the cross, it was not weakness, it was strategy. Because except the Son of Man be lifted up, he can't draw all men to himself. So the Bible said, if the princes of this world have known, they would not have crucified. So the crucifixion, the death, the resurrection was not just love, it was also wisdom. I need to enter Hades to defeat you, but I can't enter Hades until I disconnect from my body. So when they put him on the cross, he was on a journey to Hades. It was when he entered Hades, he was even quiet. All of them gathered. We have brought him here. So you were on earth shouting and giving command. And all of them gathered together. When they all gathered together, Oga stood up. If I fight you in my ring, you will say I am biased. If I fight you in my realm, you will say I am biased. I came to your own realm. First, I outsmarted you by allowing you to think you killed me so that I can have access to come here. Now that I have come here, I will activate the third protocol, which is power. So what he did was that in hell, he challenged every demon. He challenged every principality. He challenged every power. And he subdued all of them. And when he subdued them, he collected the key of death. He collected the key of the grave. He collected the key of hell. And he rose up and carried the key with him. So right now, Satan is in hell. He doesn't have the key. Right now, Satan is in the grave, but he doesn't have the key. Right now, Satan threatens with death, but he doesn't have the key. And when he collected the key, that was when we discovered he didn't need it. He handed it over to the disciples. All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. You go in that power. You go in that power. So if you want to know Jesus, you will know the love of God. That God could give his best for you. If you want to know Jesus, you need to know the wisdom of God. That even what appears to be weakness is a divine strategy. That's why in your life, you may be going through a prison. It's later you will discover that prison is shortcut. How many years would he have taken Joseph to become prime minister? It would not have happened. All his brothers that were senior to him, they came to bow to him. So the prison was actually divine wisdom, and it was divine shortcut. You thought that Joseph was suffering. Joseph was not suffering. Joseph was going through a shortcut. And many years later, Joseph turned and looked at his brothers and said, you meant it for evil. God meant it for good. He sent me ahead of you to save a generation. So you want to see Jesus? You see him through the gospel. And when you see the gospel, you will see Jesus as the love of God. You will see Jesus as the wisdom of God. You will see Jesus as the power of God. And with these three things, nothing can bring you down. As I am now, there's nothing that I can ask God for. Because every time I come before God, I weigh what I want to ask with Jesus. Which one is bigger? Jesus is bigger. If he gave Jesus, he will give me. My prayer has finished. When I come before God, whatever I am going through, when I pray and God says it is well, I compare the calamity I'm going through as a channel of achieving what God said with the calamity Jesus went through and the channel it was to achieving what he was supposed to get. I realize that what I'm going through is nothing. It is divine wisdom. And when I go through anything and I consider the power that rose Jesus from the dead, I know that cancer is too small. Cancer can be dematerialized. I know that lameness is too small. I know that deafness is too small, because Jesus is the love of God. Jesus is the wisdom of God. Jesus is the power of God. And you will never have been able to see it except through the message of the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus. This is the foundation of our faith. That's why for anybody to receive anything from God, these truths must become real to him. What I'm sharing with you, it won't make sense until you go before God and you have a request. Believe me, if you have not understood the message and you have not been able to see the love, the wisdom, and the power of God, both your prayer and what you are asking for will look like nonsense to you. You will have anxiety. If it's not coming, you'll be afraid. We came back from Oji River last month. Many people, God's servant, wanted to build a tent for the conference. 10 days to event. Building has not gone up. Some people came and tapped him and said, we appreciate your love and zeal for God, but for now, let's advise. Take this to another location. When you are at rest, you can come back to this project. What did he know? That he went ahead and the building stood, the conference happened. See, the difference between the manifestation of two believers is how much meaning they have made out of the gospel. Those who have seen love there, nothing is too big for them to expect from God. Those who have seen wisdom there, nothing they go through can break them. If Jesus went to hell and God still achieved what he wanted to achieve, that prison is too small to stop you. That gang up is too small to stop you. Because the wisdom manifested for Jesus to route the throne through the grave, no wisdom beats it. And if Jesus could rise from the grave after 3 days, there's nothing on earth that can defy God's power. That means God's power can handle anything. This is why the first protocol of receiving from God is to see Jesus. And when you see Jesus, you will see him as the love of God. John said in 1 John 4:8, he said, God is love. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 1:23-25, he said, Christ is the wisdom of God and the power of God. It was the death, burial, and resurrection that brought that picture to life.